Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Bubb Report. I am your humble host, Dr. Kellen Bubb. We're happy that all of you can join us today, and we welcome you into the room. And as usual, as you're coming into the room, please let us know where you're joining us from. Where are you watching the program from? We know that we have our usual suspects in the Grenadian diaspora, folks who are in Montreal, folks who are in Toronto. We have the Brooklyn crew as well. We also have the moms who are preparing their Sunday lunches in the kitchen, those who are coming from church as well. We welcome you all to this week's edition of the Bubb Report. Now, this Sunday is a very special edition for us as the Bubb Report is celebrating its 6th anniversary of programming to the national community in Grenada and the diaspora as well as in the Caribbean. Now, 6 years ago, we took a bold step into digital media, inspired by the legacy of the late Grenadian radio icon, George Grant. As we know, the late George Grant, he held the fort for Sunday morning radio programming in Grenada. And of course, before him, it was the great Paul Roberts. Those two gentlemen really held the fort for Sunday morning radio programming in Grenada for many decades. And as we know, George Grant, untimely passing in the year 2020 during the height of the COVID pandemic is what spurned this platform, the Bubb Report. Of course, so for those of you who may or may not know the history, I appeared on Sundays with George Grant on the very last appearance, on the very last program that George Grant had before he passed away. And some are saying that perhaps fate would have it that I inherited that baton from him. So again, I do want to acknowledge all of George Grant's viewers and listeners who also took the leap of faith with me 6 years ago. We started with a very modest platform. I started doing that while I was in the process of completing my dissertation work. So the truth is that when this program started, my goal was to be consistent and disciplined. Now, one's credibility is not only found in objectivity and truth, which is what we try to do, but it must also be grounded in consistency. And I can say that that's one of the things I have attempted to do, is to be consistent with the Bubb Report. Now, the reality, folks, is that sometimes I make this production look easy, but in reality, it's not. Now, conceptualizing topics to be aired every week takes a lot of research and well thought out concept mapping. Identifying subject matter experts also requires deep thought on our part. Now, it is very easy in this age of social media and a smartphone for anyone to start a live and essentially say anything without care for message credibility. But we try to do things differently here on this platform. We are guided by evidence-based programming with the pursuit of truth as our ultimate North Star. So folks, thank you all for all of you who continue to support this platform, and let us congratulate this platform on for amplifying voices, elevating public discourse, and championing independent journalism. Now, later this year, the Bubb Report will be holding its anniversary event, its 6th anniversary event at the Grenada Trade Center, which will be dedicated to amplifying issues surrounding gender-based violence. Now, as some of you probably know, we did hold our 5th anniversary event at the Trade Center last year in May. However, owing to some scheduling challenges, it was difficult for us to hold it in May this year, but we will be holding it in November this year. So please stay tuned for that. And now we're going to segue into another topic here, which will sort of be the editorial for this week. Now, last week, opposition leader, the Honorable Emmeline Pear, she brought to the nation's attention allegations of sexual assault that was brought to her attention as being committed by some members of a visiting Nigerian delegation from the Taraba state. Now, the delegation was in Grenada at the time to celebrate African Liberation Day, a holiday once observed in Grenadian history by the former People's Revolutionary Government from 1979 to 1983. No government since post-revolutionary Grenada made this holiday one of importance, except this current administration. And I must personally congratulate this administration for lifting this holiday up and giving it the prominence it deserves. Because the reality is, African Liberation Day is in essence an offshoot of the non-aligned movement of nations allied in the global south. And it is a holiday that I believe all people of African descent should be observing and celebrated. Now, from the outset, however, I find it problematic that the anti-African bias that some in Grenadian society perpetuate when allegations like these are brought forward. The stereotyping of an entire group of people who visited Grenada owing to the alleged actions of a few is akin to racism and self-hate. Now, Grenada has a serious issue of sexual assault and gender-based violence. And it would also be problematic for people to be labeling the entire Grenadian population as being prone to sexually assaulting women on a whim. That is also stereotypical. But folks, I digress. The Bubb Report stands with all victims of sexual violence and everyone, irrespective of who brought the allegations forward, are entitled to due process. The problem is, in this case, is that because the messengers were seen as partisan, some in society have resorted to questioning the credibility of the alleged victims involved here. There are some issues, folks, that must transcend partisanship, and gender-based violence should be one of them. But the social media discourse that unfolded in Grenada last week is not unique to Grenada. New research from Syracuse University Newhouse School of Public Communications reveal a relationship between political biases and attitudes about sexual assault. Now, this research was authored by Assistant Professor Rebecca Ortiz and PhD student Andrew Smith. Now, the article titled "A Social Identity Threat Perspective on Why Partisans May Engage in Greater Victim Blaming and Sexual Assault Myth Acceptance in the Me Too Era" was published in June 2021 in the peer-reviewed journal Violence Against Women. Ortiz and Smith found that in the context of the United States, the stronger the partisan identity of Republicans and Democrats, the more likely they were to engage in victim-blaming attitudes or in victim-questioning attitudes, which was then related to a lesser likelihood to perceive the Me Too movement as having a positive impact in the United States, possibly as a way of defending their political identities. So are we seeing a similar pattern here in the context of Grenada? I do want to hear your thoughts on this issue. So folks, this is the Bubb Report. And as you're coming into the room, do us a favor by liking and sharing this week's live stream. And if you're over on YouTube, do hit that like button. And of course, for those of you who are watching on television, that's WPG Television. The show will be repeated later as a repeat broadcast, as well as on the Grenada Broadcasting Television as a repeat broadcast on Wednesday at 5 p.m. So folks, what we want to do is to take a quick break and come back for the first segment of the Bubb Report. Please stand by for that.
Don't go there.
You are a technocrat. I mean, you can speak to whether or not it was appropriate or inappropriate for that to occur. Would you have done that as a permanent secretary?
Politicians get the information from wherever source that they can.
That's going to be the extent of your answer.
Yeah.
Don't go there.
There's a lot of noise around the data protection bill that, in my respectful view, is not warranted.
I was one of those making noise, and it's simply because I was concerned about that specific section 33.
Don't go there.
Are you going to be offering yourself up as political leader of the party?
I see you've called me here for much more than diplomatic passports. I don't mind that.
Don't go there.
What is the relationship like between you and your leader, Dr. Mitchell, your boss, Dr. Mitchell?
I'm not sure how to explain how to answer this question at this time. I prefer not to answer.
Don't go there.
They said that you approached the bank for the loan before the election and that it only materialized after the election. There are also conflicting reports around the quantity of monies that were received. What is the reality here?
People try to extort the truth and to make all kinds of things about it. I just stay quiet. So if you notice, I was really and truly quiet about the whole matter.
Well, except with not with the New Today newspaper. The New Today newspaper reported on this, so I'm not too sure you were quiet on this. Go ahead, Honorable. Go ahead.
Well, I'm just trying to answer your question, right?
Don't go there.
I think we just spoke at length about the regularization framework. So
yes, we did. But let us talk, Prime Minister. Let us talk about the workers who are dismissed.
The Bubb Report. We go there.
Should your loved ones pass on, they deserve to be treated with dignity. And at S.A. Johnson Funeral Home, we can provide you with that service. We can take you every step of the way during your sorrowful moments. When that need arises, call S.A. Johnson Funeral Home at 347-777-9797. That's 347-777-9797. S.A. Johnson Funeral Home is a Caribbean family-owned funeral home here in Brooklyn, providing funeral services, but in a dignified way. From cremation to burial to the repatriation of your loved ones, you don't have to go through the hassle, as we provide exceptional service that allows you to mourn and heal peacefully. For more information, visit our website, www.sajohnsonfuneral.org. Send us an email at sajfuneral@aol.com or call 347-777-9797. S.A. Johnson Funeral Home, because you deserve to be treated with dignity.
And folks, we welcome you back to this week's edition of the Bubb Report, and we're happy that you can stay with us. Again, do us a favor, just share, like this week's program. Now, Pope Leo made a historic apology on last Monday for the Holy See's role in legitimizing slavery and for having failed to condemn it for centuries, calling the Vatican's record a wound in Christian memory. Past popes have apologized for Christians' involvement in the transatlantic slave trade, but no pope has ever publicly acknowledged, much less apologized, for the role that past popes played in giving European sovereigns explicit authority to subjugate and enslave what past popes and the Catholic Church called people of African descent as infidels. Now, history's first-born U.S. Pope, whose family history includes both enslaved people and slave owners, delivered the apology in his first encyclical, Magnifica Humanitas, or Magnificent Humanity, which was released last Monday. The sweeping manifesto is about safeguarding humanity in an era of increasing reliance on artificial intelligence. Now, Pope Leo raised the slave trade question in relation to what he called new forms of slavery and colonization that the digital revolution is fueling. Reparations movements in Africa and the African-descended Caribbean and American diasporas have long campaigned for the Catholic Church and other colonial Christian religious institutions to apologize and give account for their historic role in enslaving, subjugating, and forcibly converting Africans into Christianity for hundreds of years. In July 2022, during Pope Francis's tenure, a delegation of global reparations leaders visited the Vatican and held court with Bishop Paul Tige, Secretary of the Pontifical Council of Culture, along with his assistant. The purpose of the meeting was to begin a dialogue with the Catholic Church on its role in sanctioning and benefiting from the transatlantic slave trade and its legacy that inflicted immeasurable harm, pain, and trauma on Africa and its global diaspora. Now, here to make sense of Pope Leo's historic apology is the Reverend Dr. Peter Timothy, as well as Mr. Ali Gill, who is the chair of the Grenada National Reparations Committee. The Reverend Dr. Peter Timothy is an ordained deacon of the Roman Catholic Church and served as the Episcopal Delegate for Evangelization from September 2016 to March 2022. In April 22, he was appointed Ministry Coordinator for St. Anthony's and St. John's Cluster in the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Gentlemen, welcome to this week's edition of the Bubb Report.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
Good morning to all of your listeners and viewers. Good morning.
Yes. Yes, Reverend, are you on a laptop? Are you able to adjust the screen downwards? Because we're seeing a lot of headroom. We're seeing a bit of a halo in the background there. There you go. There you go. Much better, sir. Thank you so much. Excellent. Excellent. Now, gentlemen, Reverend, I do want to begin with you. And we want to, of course, thank Bishop Harvey. I almost said Archbishop Harvey there. I can't give him another title. I don't have the episcopal authority to do that. But we want to thank Bishop Harvey for facilitating your appearance on the program today. So we want to thank him for that. But Reverend, let us react to the Pope's historic apology. What does this mean for the church and the work of the church in, of course, you speak to evangelization. What does that mean for the church?
Well, what it means is Pope Leo is standing as the head of the church and recognizing that in the past, the church has held particular positions that one cannot justify, particularly at this point in time. While it was part of the tradition, and that that compliance with slavery and so on was really popes, subsequent popes, not really seeking to go back on anything that was there before. All right. Mm-hmm. I just want to say, Dr. Bob, that
yes,
the slavery that we obviously will speak of would be the enslavement of Africans. But yes, the tradition that Pope Leo is apologizing for is for that in the latter centuries, but it goes back to, even as he says, the Middle Ages, where it was deemed appropriate to enslave the infidel, the non-Christian. And of course, when it comes down to the period of African slavery, the Africans would fall into that realm. So it's a long tradition coming down. So he's apologizing definitely for this, but for the tradition that went even earlier.
Absolutely. Mr. Gill, as I articulated in the intro, the reparations movement in the Caribbean and in Africa, but especially the CARICOM reparations movement, have been giving voice to this issue for a long time. As I articulated, there was a reparations delegation that met with representatives of former Pope Francis. So let us get your reaction, Mr. Gill, to that, and to really also speak to the activism of the reparations movement in arriving at this moment that we are in now.
Well, first of all, let me say that this apology is long overdue. In your intro, I think you wanted to say that popes in the past have expressed regrets with regards to slavery and slave trade, but Pope Leo is going a step further and to ask for pardon.
Yeah.
And in reading the text, one can see that he did not go so far as to say that there must be a guarantee, because fundamental to the apology that we reparationists ask for is also a guarantee that these acts would not repeat themselves. And in the text where Pope Leo speak of AI and the technology and how it can be used to harm humanity going forward, one can sense that not just the Pope is asking for pardon, but also providing or saying to us that those things should never repeat itself in human history. So we are grateful for that. We believe that it is long overdue. The Catholic Church as an institution, of course, with the papal bull of 1452, Dom Divisas, which gave the Portuguese monarch at the time the right to invade and subjugate and to enslave persons in perpetuity. You see, these papal bulls are not just one, you know, the Romanist pontifex came later on, and the whole doctrine of discovery and so on and so forth. They sort of provided legal and philosophical basis for the Atlantic slave trade, slavery, and the legacies of these crimes against humanity that we still suffer from. And I believe that Pope Leo has done humanity a great deed by making that pronouncement. We are hoping, therefore, that other institutions and countries will follow suit, especially those in Europe, like the King of England, and we have the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting later this year in Antigua, and we have witnessed only this week as well, President Macron in France engaging with the President of Ghana to have a conversation on reparations, so that we believe that that statement in this encyclical by the Pope will provide new avenues and to soften the hearts of others who lead institutions and nations to engage with us, to apologize, and to speak to us with regards to reparative justice. But we applaud the efforts, the statement by Pope Leo, and we hope that this is just the beginning, and the Catholic Church will now enroll or roll out in its own institution, reparate, and have a discussion with us with regards to how now the Catholic Church would like to, along with us, when I say us, I speak of the CARICOM Reparations Commission and other reparation movements throughout globally, have an engagement with us to ensure that we can treat with, or we can repair the harm which was caused by these papal bulls and philosophical positions outlined by the church centuries ago.
Mr. Gill, I'm glad you raised these papal bulls, because Reverend Dr. Timothy, I will outline some of them now, and just repeat quickly what Mr. Gill said, and you would see my train of thought on this, which will bring me to the question. There was the papal bull Inter Cartere of 1493, which was issued by Pope Alexander V, which divided the newly quote-unquote discovered lands between Spain and Portugal and mandated the subjugation of native peoples to spread the Catholic faith. And you know, we always hear about Christopher Columbus quote-unquote discovering the Indies. Well, it came from the Catholic Church. The language of discovery is part of that doctrine of discovery. Then in 1548, Pope Paul III used his apostolic authority to declare the slave trade legal in the eyes of the church, which empowered the religious monarchies in European nations to continue to engage in transatlantic slave trafficking. The popes and their friends accepted gifts of enslaved Black people shipped from Africa to Rome. And before that, well, before 1548, and before that papal bull, you also had the Romanist Pontifex, which 1455, which Mr. Gill spoke to, issued by Pope Nicholas VI. This document reinforced and expanded the previous bull, which granted Portugal a monopoly to trade and the territories in West Africa and provided a theological justification for the enslavement of indigenous populations, both in Africa and in whatever other discovered lands. So, Reverend, here, the point is that the Catholic Church gave Europeans a permission structure, sort of a spiritual cover to engage in the atrocities that they did for hundreds of years. And so I'm coming to my question now, and that has to do with encyclicals, because all of these are, I suppose, are encyclicals and declarations by popes. Would Pope Leo's encyclical, which, again, this encyclical does not explicitly speak to colonization and slavery. It's a technological encyclical. And so my question is, does that invalidate the encyclicals specific to colonization and slavery that previous popes announced? How does that work in the context of the church?
Well, the encyclicals and the previous encyclicals and proclamations that would have been issued by the various popes were issued for their particular period and time period and particular circumstances. So it means that those were the Europeans and so on. They would have utilized that as rationale for what they are doing, as they had done in the past. What Pope Leo is saying is that at that point in time, we did not have the moral understanding and so on that we have now with regard to things like slavery and so on, and that was definitely wrong, and that the church itself was wrong in the sense that it did not condemn slavery and help to perpetuate slavery in the particular time periods of where those bulls came from. So it is not until, as Pope Leo says, not until the 19th century you get the sort of proclamation that this slavery is something that is morally reprehensible, and that the teaching of the church, or the way that the church justified and was, I would even use the word complicit in perpetuating the slavery going forward, was wrong. And we, as an institution today, from the head, led by Pope Leo, are saying we are sorry and we did wrong. We can't justify it and say it was right. We did wrong. We are sorry. We should not, as in the sense that the church is the presence of Christ in the world, holding to that initial mandate from our Savior, our Lord Jesus Christ. Coming through the centuries, we should have had a different stance with regard to that. We did not. We were wrong. But what we do say is those mistakes that we have made is what has brought us to what we are today. And Pope Leo is saying we are sorry. So you're totally correct. Those proclamations, right, justified and was utilized to subjugate people. And Pope Leo is saying, as church, we should have had a different stance, but we didn't, and we are sorry for it.
Mr. Gill, and I'll get back to you there, Reverend, shortly. But let us talk about, and yes, we talk about the intellectual and spiritual permission structure that the Catholic Church gave to European colonizers to do what they did, not only to our people, but to the native peoples in the hundreds of millions, the genocide of the native peoples, yes? That the Catholic Church does not really, I don't know if they have apologized for that, but maybe they did, Reverend, you can correct me here. But let us also talk about the material benefits, the wealth-derived benefits that the Catholic Church profited from the enterprise of colonization and slavery, Mr. Gill. Because it's not only about the intellectual permission structure, but it's also about those material gains that the Catholic Church acquired during that period.
Yes, and the Reverend Doctor maybe even more versed than myself with regards to the history of the Catholic Church. But in my own little research and learnings of the Catholic Church, especially as a A-level history student, the Catholic Church derived tremendous material wealth with the Atlantic slave trade and slavery. and also the acquisition of lands from the indigenous peoples. Now, what we need to appreciate though, separate and apart, because the Catholic Church was arguably the most powerful institution in Europe at the time, even more powerful than states, because you would appreciate that these papal bulls gave the Portuguese monarchy and later the Spanish monarchy and so on the right to do those things. They looked to the Pope and they looked to the church for leadership on these issues in that particular period of time. And as we well know today, the Vatican is a state within a state, basically, within Italy. So that the Catholic Church have always had tremendous political power. And at that time, they yielded tremendous influence. So that apart from the justification, philosophically, religiously, and so on, and legally as well, within the European jurisprudence, because let's not, I disagree a bit with Pope Leo when he speaks of the morality at the time. The morality at the time from a European perspective. Yes, you see, one of the things that we have to be careful about is that Europe does not represent the world. Eurocentric views and perspective, the morality of Europe and Europeans does not automatically translate to the morality of Africa in Africa, in Africans in Africa, Asians in Asia, and so on, and Indians in India. You know what I mean? Europe is not the world. The United States is not the world. You know, when we speak of international law and so on, what attains in the most powerful countries and so on, it does not mean that the legal jurisprudence is the same in smaller developing countries. So that in England, for instance, we would have had Magna Carta, which is basically the body of law which speaks to the freedom of men, and so on and so forth. So too, in developed legal jurisprudence in Africa, we also, Africans as well had appreciated and developed the jurisprudence with regards to freedom of men. And what we speak of here is chattel slavery. Chattel slavery, where human beings were seen to be the property of others. So there's always been a system of servitude. Yes? And we have to continue to make the distinction of what attained in the quote-unquote New World, the Americas, the Caribbean, and the United States, and so on, was chattel slavery, where black people was owned by their masters and so on. That never existed before. You see, so that's extremely important. But Dr. Bob, we also have to now look at the legacies that would have been left by the Atlantic slave trade and slavery. So that when we speak in this historical context, persons who are listening to us must be clear that what we speak of is not just something that ended with the abolition of the slave trade and the abolition of slavery. And one of the most lasting legacies of these papal bulls and the doctrine of discovery and so on is anti-black racism. These papal bulls did not only give justification to subjugate others on a plantation to work as slaves, but it also set up, in a real sense, the superiority complex of white people and the inferiority complex of black people. So that if Pope Leo and the church is sincere and genuine about this, with regards to the apology, the Catholic Church cannot stop here. It cannot stop now. It must continue. Now, I am certain that, Catholics hearing reparation activists and historians over the years speaking about the role of the Catholic Church may have said to themselves that why you guys hating on the church? Why you guys talking bad about the church and so on? Because fundamentally, I am of the respectful view that a significant percentage of the congregation of the Catholic Church is not aware of the history of the church with regards to slavery and slave trade. Yes, I grew up in the Catholic Church, and I never knew about all this, the role of the Catholic Church in slavery and slave trade. That is not taught in Sunday schools. So that I believe now the Catholic Church has an excellent opportunity to begin educating its congregation with the role that the Catholic Church as an institution played with indigenous genocide, the Atlantic trade and slavery. This is how, and when we speak of reparative justice, that is what all of that is part of it. So we're not just asking and saying to the church, well, you have to pay us monies and so on and so forth. The Catholic Church now has an obligation to its own congregation, to its own followers, to Christian people, to educate them with regards to the history of the Catholic Church and how it impacted slavery, slave trade, indigenous genocide, and anti-Black racism and so on going forward. So that is why I am saying to us that the Catholic Church cannot start now, cannot stop now. And I expect my good friend, Bishop Harvey, to invite me soon to the Catholic Church to have a conversation or a meeting with himself and other priests and deacons and so on. Let us start talking about reparative justice for Grenadians. In other words, we don't have to wait for the Pope again. The leadership must come from bishops, from the priests, and so on. Let us start educating ourselves and our churchgoers, Catholics worldwide now with regards to the role of the Catholic Church. That is part of the healing. That must be part of the repair. Education. So let's get it on.
Bishop, I said Bishop, Reverend, sorry, Reverend Dr. Timothy there, I'm giving you a title which only Archbishop or the Pope can give you. But let us talk about what Mr. Gill just articulated here in respect of, because of course a viewer made the point as well when we published, when we advertised today's program, okay, the apology comes, now what next after that, right? And so the question is, as Mr. Gill articulated here, would there be a process, or would that encyclical issued by the Pope now put in train a series of, shall we say, public education activities? I know that there are several deaneries and things like that that you have. Let's talk about what that apology would mean in also respect of partnering perhaps with reparations movements in the Caribbean, many of whom are people in those reparations movements are also Catholic.
Okay. We have to look at this with regard to when you're speaking of the church and the church as an institution, all right, that you would have to talk at different levels. I am what is called a permanent deacon. So I'm a married man with children. I'm not a priest. Okay.
Yes.
But I also teach church history at the seminary. All right. So we're talking different levels. At the level, and I am not the person in charge of the seminary, but I can say, I can speak here boldly and say that the leadership at the seminary, or what we call the academic block, because we affiliated to St. Augustine UE, so we operate like the theology department of St. Augustine. So for us, okay, I can say, because just recently with the of my dean, Dr. Dana James, I started a series where I did an overview of church history with regard to the courses that we teach in the seminary. And I went out to a number of parishes speaking about the history of the church with regard to those particular courses. One of the courses that is taught is that of the history of Caribbean churches in the pre-emancipation period. So in that particular period, the topics would have been dealt. One of the topics dealt with is, of course, the interaction of the church with the indigenous people, and also the interaction that you would have with various churches. It's not a history of the Catholic Church. You speak of Catholic Church history, but you speak of other churches in the Caribbean. So in that light, and from what Mr. Gill is saying, one would have to recognize, and I think it's accepted, right, by historians, that when you speak of the Roman Catholic Church, and I don't want to speak for any other church, but I have to say it in the sense of dealing with the history of where I am from, Trinidad and Tobago, all right, that it is not until the 18th century that plantation type agriculture is promoted in Trinidad. In other places, it was there long before. It is by the settler population in 1783, where the Spaniards, using Trinidad basically as a stop-off point to South America, decided to develop it agriculturally. And thus by that settler, people were invited to come with their enslaved persons, and they were given land and so on. So that's the history of us here in Trinidad. We have a history of enslavement and so on, but it is a bit less than some of the other places, all right, with regard to plantation slavery. And then you also have to take into account, and that's why I'm saying I cannot speak for the Anglican Church or anyone, but 1797, Trinidad is taken over by the British, and thus it's controlled by the British. But we would have to understand that the Catholic Church, because you had a lot of Catholics in Trinidad, you will now also have the British, and thus the Anglican Church will be involved. These churches are the churches of the elite and of the planters, right? So they are supporting the slave owners, and they are preaching to slave owners and that sort of thing, right? So within the history of the church, you may have a voice there and so on that may speak out about it. If we go back to the in that course, we talk about the interaction with the indigenous. So you had churchmen, particular churchmen, speaking out, but the church's position was one that you could enslave the person because they are not Christian, and so on. So with Mr. Gill, so what I'm saying, at different levels. So at the level of the seminary and where we can, yes, definitely. The level for it to be a widespread thing of church, and I would encourage that, and I am sure that the what we call the Antilles Episcopal Conference, the bishops of the Antilles Episcopal Conference, for it to have a more widespread thing within the conference, dialogue would have to take place with the head and the bishops of the conference. But I from Pope Leo's apology, I can see, and I agree with Mr. Gill, there is an opening for further dialogue as to what more we can do to ensure that, as he speaks of, reparation is done with regard to that, right? And that particular issue. But there are different levels, and there are some levels that we can take charge of and say, yes, we would go forward, but there are other levels that we cannot, simply because of the way the church is organized.
And that would have to be dictates from the Vatican, is what you're saying?
No, once Pope Leo has given the encyclical, so in our region we have what we call the AEC, so that there are bishops here who take charge of each diocese. So dialogue can take place with those bishops with regard to this proclamation that has been made by Pope Leo. They don't have to go back to Pope Leo to ask for permission for dialogue. Because of what the head of the church has said, dialogue can take place by speaking with the head of the particular, the AEC bishops.
Well, gentlemen, Mr. Gill, what I would do, I would certainly put you in touch with Reverend Dr. Timothy here. And I suspect, Mr. Gill, you do have a contact for Bishop Harvey in Grenada. So perhaps that's something that perhaps the Reparations Committee can put on its agenda,
I think
Mr. Gill.
Now to, in the Caribbean, one point, Dr. Bob, I realize you're wrapping because I know you have other segments. But
yes.
growing up in the
no, we're not
Church,
wrapping. We still have 2 more questions. Go ahead. Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay, growing up in the Catholic Church in Grenada, and I don't know, maybe it was the same for Trinidad. We had a lot of white priests in the church, but right now in Grenada we have a fair percentage of African and persons of color who are now priests, and we have black priests in the leadership of the Catholic Church. They must play their role as well, in terms of lighting the fire within the church for reparative justice and for curing that heel. As Pope Leo said, this thing has been a blot on the history of the church for so long. And Dr. Bob, we have a Trinidadian historian here, so we can't let him go just like that. He spoke of the schedule of the population in 1783. Trinidad is a fairly young colony. That's why you have a large Indian population to come and work on the cane fields and so on. But that cedula, which Reverend Doctor spoke about, that is what, in a real sense, gave Trinidad its carnival. I had to make that plug in here. I couldn't let you escape from that. Because you have persons from the French Caribbean, Grenada, Guadeloupe, Martinique, Dominica, and so on, going to Trinidad and get the lands. But they went to Trinidad also with their slaves and so on. And in a real sense, Trinidad was never colonized by the French. But you notice the carnival have all the French traditions, because carnival, as we know, it is French tradition. So the cedula is what, in a real sense, would have had the surrounding islands of Trinidad going to Trinidad. And of course, today, Trinidad is the mecca of Caribbean carnivals. But yeah, I had to make the plug in there. I couldn't let a Trinidad historian escape that on the Bubb Report.
Thank you, Mr. Gill. And the point is that why you had a very strong French influence is in the cedula. You were given lands and you could come with your slaves, but there was one major criteria. You had to be Roman Catholic, right? Thus, the people who would have been able to take up that would have been the French. And then again, in Caribbean history, we'd have to understand that that's also happening just a little while before the Saint-Domingue Revolution breaks out. Haiti.
And the Saint-Domingue
Revolution, you would have when
the Saint-Domingue Revolution only came after the Federal Revolt in Grenada.
Right.
The Haitian Revolution, we can't forget the history, came after the Federal Revolt in Grenada, where the British,
so French, right? So French people could take it up, and you also had a few what we call Irish people. They had to be Roman Catholic. So that is why we have that very strong French influence, as Mr. Gill is correctly saying. The French never colonized Trinidad, but because of this migration and this movement, you had a very strong French influence. So we were Spanish from 1492 to 1797, thus our Spanish influence, and the cedula brought in the French influence. And that's why you find those two cultures. And, like we have places like Washerwoman, Blanchisseuse, which is French, and we have places like San Juan, which is Spanish. That melting.
And you got the first Caledonian Pierre Begorat. And of course, the greatest of them all, the mighty Sparrow, born in Grand Roy.
In Grenada.
In Grenada.
Of course, Mr. Ashley, we must speak truth.
Yeah, correct. So again, that's a memo to our brothers and sisters in Trinidad and Tobago.
we are quite grateful. You have helped quite a lot with our development, particularly in that area.
Yes, absolutely. But back to Dr. Timothy, in the context of this encyclical, we had Jermaine Fowler. He's an African-American historian. Now, he said this of the Pope's apology, quote, Pope Leo the 16th, yes? Pope Leo the 16th buried the apology.
14th, I think. 14th.
The 14th. Okay, the 14th.
14th.
Yes. Pope Leo buried the apology inside an encyclical about artificial intelligence. 3 paragraphs out of 245. The historic admission of the church's role in chattel slavery is the B plot to a document about chatbots, unquote. So in that sense, this historian is making the point that this encyclical, the central premise of this encyclical was not necessarily the church's multi-centuries role in enslaving our ancestors, but it was sort of a side as an aside. React to that historian's critique here.
I would say one has to understand, as you said, and the context in which it's given, and because I've read also other analysts, Catholic and others, speaking about the placement of this apology and so on, so that in essence, I would use a term that we use. Pope Leo is saying, okay, we have done wrong. He has given that apology. But with the issue of, as you say, about chatbox and AI, he is trying to make the point that and I take it from the point of view as church, we were complicit with regard to a particular aspect of what we call enslavement and slavery, and we did not speak out. We are looking at modern technology and certain things that can take us in that direction, and therefore he cautions the church to be more vigilant, right, and to be more proactive with regard to what one would probably call new forms of slavery, or which could lead to new forms of slavery, and make sure that we don't repeat the mistakes that we made before. So it is in that context, listening to analysts and reading it myself, is where I see where he brought in this issue of the apology. In other words, we were wrong with regard to this for so many centuries. We are facing a situation now that we must all be careful, because with the technology, there is good that can come from the technology, but one must also be very careful that with regard to the cons that can come out of the technology, and therefore to be careful. I think I want to take Mr. Gill's point that and I also take the point of the critique, the historian, the African American historian critique, while it is short bit, and it was in a particular encyclical, but he is drawing an inference and trying to make analogy. And I take from Mr. Gill, I agree that what it has done is has opened the door for dialogue, and let us dialogue and see how we can move towards continuing the healing. I totally agree with that.
Yeah,
all right? I can't dispute what the other person has said, but I'm saying even analysts who are looking at it are saying this is why Pope Leo put it in this particular document, right? And if it is magnificent humanity, then in that document he's saying humanity is magnificent, and look where we have failed. Let us ensure in the modern era we don't fail or go along a similar line.
Mr. Gill, your thoughts on that critique?
No, I think is a fair critique. The truth is, we would have liked to have our own encyclical with regards to that issue should be told. But Kellon, as this struggle continues to unfold with regards to reparative justice, you will see that we are making small gains, bit by bit, step by step. And this struggle has been going on for centuries. And while we will want more, as I said, I believe that this is a step in the right direction, which we are grateful for. How then can we now build on that? I am not one to groan and to moan. So the Pope Leo has opened the door for the church to do more in Grenada, more in Trinidad, more in the Caribbean, more in Africa. And ironically, the church in Africa is growing as its fastest. The church is growing the fastest right now in Africa. So it's ironical that at the same time that this is happening. So that, as I said, what are the next steps? Right? What are the next steps? How can the church engage now with regards to reparative justice? The Anglican Church They have made an apology a couple of years ago, but they have had certain missteps in terms of announcing certain amounts of monies that will be made available for repair without proper consultation and so on with the reparative justice organizations globally. So they have gone out on their own, and they have made certain missteps that things have not gone as smoothly as it ought to. So now the Catholic Church can avoid these pitfalls that the Anglican Church have had in terms of rolling out a program of harm, a program of repair, to repair the harm which was done by these crimes against humanity, which we speak of. So while the criticism is fair, for me, and I believe when I speak also for the CARICOM Reparations Commission, the CRC, what are the next steps? Where do we go from here? Is it a statement that is just a part of an encyclical, or will the Catholic Church engage us? So, for instance, all these things, growing up, I don't know, Doctor, but what is your Christian name? Or what is your saint name? But to be Christian in the Catholic Church, for instance, you have to have this saint name or this Christian name and so on and so forth. All of that played a role in stripping Black people of their identity. So I had to give myself the name Salimbi to maintain that.
Well, I also changed my name from John to Jaramu. I decided to change that because that was the name. That's the same name. Yeah, I changed that.
Right. So that's what I'm talking about. So how can we, going forward now, the Catholic Church can abandon those sort of reasoning and those sort of rationales and so on.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
How do you deal now with the Catholic Church can also play a pivotal role in reversing the anti-Black racism, by promoting the fact that all races are equal. Black people are not more than other races. We're equal. We're not more than white people. And white people is not more than us. We're not more than Indians. Everyone is born equal. So the Lord has created us and so forth. So the church can play an active role in seeking to correct some of the psychological harm which was done and so on. The issues of indigenous religions, for instance, right? Central to the papal bulls and so on is this talk about heathens and paganism. In other words, one person had different religious beliefs than you. You brand them and you say that they were pagans, but they are the old gods. Whether they say the god of the wind, the god of sun, the god of and so on and forth. This thing about this religion and Reverend Doctor can share more light on is a matter of faith and belief and so on. So how then do we have discriminated against the Rastafarians for years, and they had their own beliefs and so on and so forth in the Caribbean space, right? How now? And then we've always talked ill about indigenous African beliefs and so on, like Obi and so on and so forth, so that how can we then in the religious space of the Caribbean, in as much as how then can we work together to ensure that all religions and beliefs are respected, right? One do not have to conform with, that's why you have Islam, you have Christianity, different religious beliefs and so on. We are serving one God. People have different routes, different path, maybe to get to the end and so on. So all of these things, there's a lot of work that can be done by the church. And I'm saying these things because sometimes people believe reparations. When we speak of reparations,
it's about money.
Getting a check, getting money. But the psychological harm and so on is even, money can't pay for that. And there's a lot we can do to uplift and to elevate as Bob Marley said, emancipate ourselves from mental slavery. And I would like to see the church engaging in that sort of a work. Well, it does not take millions of dollars
just to respond to that, as I spoke of, you have the region, which is the AEC, and all the bishops of the region. But every bishop is in charge of a territory. Now, in Trinidad, just as I was sharing with regard to chattel slavery and its development in Trinidad, it's a 18th century really in pushing off. There is evidence that there were slaves before, but it is that plantation movement of the cedula that increases chattel slavery in things. It's the same with regard to us in Trinidad, with regard to our religious experience and so on. So the church always speaks of ecumenism, that is having dialogue with other Christian religions. Our first local archbishop, Anthony Pantin, was instrumental in developing what we have, and we have it now, which is called the IRO, the Interreligious Organization, right? Where the church in Trinidad speaks with and has a body and meetings with other religions, which we call non-Christian, non-Catholic, so on, right? Who are part of it. Now, obviously, because of our history, you have a large group of the Indians so the Hindus would be involved, the Muslims are involved, the Orisha are involved. Once you want to be part of the organization and you agree to its principles, you come, they meet, they discuss as to how we continue religious dialogue and so on in Trinidad. So in Trinidad, we have such an organization where all the religions are invited to a body called the Interreligious Organization. I can't speak for other dioceses and so on, but I can speak for our diocese in
Port of Spain.
Port of Spain. All right.
And finally,
what Mr. Gill is saying there about having that dialogue, we have started it in Trinidad, and I am sure. Now, I just want to say that Mr. Gill, because even though Bishop Harvey is now the retired bishop of Grenada, he is still bishop and no one has been there to replace him. So Mr. Gill can speak to him about engaging the AEC, because that would be your conduit. Mr. Gill can speak to me about engaging the what we call the SJVUM, the Seminary of St. John Vianney and the Ugandan Martyrs. All right. So he can have two levels of engagement. Right?
Very well.
Me for that and Bishop Harvey for the AEC bishops.
And finally, because we're having some internet connections with Mr. Gill, but finally, Reverend, I think we have Mr. Gill back now, but finally, and we'll get to closing comments before we get to the final segment of the program today. Reverend, that has to do with the Catholic Church and its timing. You know, there are portions of scripture that speaks to God's timing, etc., etc. But in the context of the Catholic Church, there has always been the prevailing view that the church takes a very long time to treat with those very pressing matters that it confronts. One of which today it has to do with the apology for its role in colonization and slavery, but another has to do with its deep and dark and long history of child sexual abuse in the church. Why does it take the church so long to acknowledge its misdeeds and injustices? What some may say are misdeeds and injustices.
If I use this particular, what we're talking about as an example, all right? Because in looking at it and trying to research it, what basically found was, because Mr. Gill did make mention to it, and I said I wanted to mention that when I was talking about the thing, I think Mr. Gill said he kind of disagreed with the Pope with regard to the thing of the morality, and it was just European morality. But I think we have to understand that the church, the Roman Catholic Church in particular, is centered at that point in time, right, in Europe, and has a European perspective. And thus the people who are popes included, who are making the declarations, who are signing the bulls and so on, they have come and they have developed into a particular understanding. Now, one of the things that I teach my students, because I said in the particular courses and so on, is, and I use a point that I make. The church does not operate in a vacuum. The church belongs in the society and operates in the society. The church is supposed to, in following its mandate of Jesus, is supposed to stand up for justice and what is right. And again, I'm saying in this issue, we were wrong. But when one looks at the 15th, 16th century Europeans, so on, and look at their concept with regard to religion and the spread of religion, and how do you ensure that somebody who is on the opposite side of you with an opinion, how do you ensure that they are saved and all that sort of thing? I always share with people, yes, I admit, and Pope Leo has admitted, that the church played and had its role in the colonization and the subjugation of peoples and that sort of thing. And once they came and they met, Mr. Gill used the term, and that was the term of the time, right? Pagans and so on, with regard to the religions that they saw there, they treated in a particular way. But I also say, let us also look at 16th century, how Europeans operated among themselves. When you look at the introduction of what we call the Protestant Reformation or the Protestant Revolution. In France, in the 16th century, ending, I think, probably just early in the 17th century, second half of the 16th century, I think about from 1560 or somewhere there, they go through a period that is called the French Wars of Religion, where Catholics and French Protestants, Huguenots, were fighting a war over religion. And if you look in their history of how Frenchmen treated each other during the time, you see the thinking of the time, right? So I'm not saying that it is right. We cannot justify it. We cannot justify it. But it is to understand that that is their thinking. Frenchmen killed one another over religion. And if we're talking racial thing, you're talking Caucasian on Caucasian. So you could imagine then that a European person coming to an area and seeing someone that has a religion, nothing that is remotely close, as in their opinion, to Christianity, and the people are of a different color, etc., it will escalate that same attitude that they had among each other when they're talking about religious matters and so on. But Dr. Bubb, I just want to share a brief experience.
Yes, sure. Yes, right? Sure.
And that is, in 2024, I went and I visited Ghana. So I am a Roman Catholic deacon. I'm Trinidadian and I'm of African descent. I am a historian, and I started as a history teacher of secondary school and so on, and then went on to do my PhD in history. My particular area is post-World War II migration. All right? And in that migration, one saw racism. When you speak of that 1948 into the 60s, my thesis is from 48 to 86, but you have the 60s and the 70s there, where people speak to you that racism was even in the church. They were Roman Catholic here, right? They went to England, right? And racism inside the church. So much so that one of the persons I interviewed said, we wondered if English people, English Catholics, reading a different Bible, right? But so I went to Ghana, and I have taught the history for years. But I went to visit first the British fort. And when I walked into the fort and went to the holding bay where they kept the people.
Kept our ancestors, our people.
Our ancestors, yes. Sorry, our ancestors. Something happened inside of me.
The same thing happened to me as well when I went to Ghana.
I taught the history for years. For years, I was teaching this history. But when you walk on that hallowed ground, something happens. You realize, right? So much so that my wife and I are intending to go next year, and I am preparing her for it, right? So there is a lot of wrong that's done. Thank God that Pope Leo has started, and I take Mr. Gill's point, started and opened the door for dialogue. And I look forward to that dialogue, because I think that can only be of benefit for all of us as Caribbean people and for humanity on the whole. The encyclical is Magnificent Humanity, and I think this apology will help us to get to our way or on the road of recognizing that indeed, as people of faith, all humanity is indeed magnificent because we are all created by God.
Absolutely. And those would be, inform your closing comments, my producer. And then we'll get to Mr. Gill, sir, for closing comments.
Yes, I would not be long at all. In fact, I want to adopt what Reverend Doctor pointed out with regard, what's the next steps? What are the next steps? How do we go from here? How can the church in the region and the Caribbean engage with the reparative justice movement to deal with the issues of psychological harm in particular? Of course, the 10-point CARICOM plan gives us a good guideline of how we can go forward, but I believe the church can engage with us and we can begin the work that is separate and apart from money. Yes, the issue of compensation and financial compensation is always on the table, but I believe that there are a lot of work that we can do with regards to reparative justice to create an environment where we can heal the harm which was caused. And I believe that Pope Leo's statement certainly opened the door for dialogue, and it is really right now is a chink in the armor of the reparative justice movement. It can open doors for us, soften the hearts of others. You see what Nigel Farage of the Reform Party in the UK are saying and so forth. But we see other positive steps coming out of France and Holland on this basis, so that, yes, we believe that this is a step in the right direction. And now we look forward to what engagement the Catholic Church can have going forward. Thank you so much.
Gentlemen, thank you for appearing on the Bubb Report this week. Certainly, thank you. And folks, what we want to do now is to take a quick break and come back for the final segment of the day with Mr. Rayneau Gadar of the Rayneau Group of Companies. So please stand by for that conversation. Thank you again, Reverend Doctor, for appearing on the program.
Thank you, Mr. Bubb. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely, sir. Yes, viewers and listeners, the first segment there, acknowledging and having a conversation concerning Pope Leo's apology on what the Catholic Church did to our ancestors. And incidentally, today is also, or this weekend, yesterday really was the observation and the celebration of Indian Arrival Day. So happy Indian Arrival Day to all in Grenada and the Eastern Caribbean. Folks, we'll take a quick break and come back for the second segment of the program. Let's stand by for that. Remember, share and like this week's live stream.
Should your loved ones pass on, they deserve to be treated with dignity. And at S.A. Johnson Funeral Home, we can provide you with that service. We can take you every step of the way during your sorrowful moments. When that need arises, call S.A. Johnson Funeral Home at 347-777-9797. That's 347-777-9797.
It's a nice Saturday morning.
9797. S.A. Johnson Funeral Home is a Caribbean family-owned funeral home here in Brooklyn, providing funeral services, but in a dignified way. From cremation to burial to the repatriation of your loved ones, you don't have to go through the hassle, as we provide exceptional service that allows you to mourn and heal peacefully. For more information, visit our website, www.sajohnsonfuneral.org. Send us an email at sajfuneral@aol.com or call 347-777-9797. S.A. Johnson Funeral Home, because you deserve to be treated with dignity.
It's a nice Saturday morning in Grenada. We're at the asphalt plant, ready to produce asphalt for the government of Grenada. It's now 6:24 a.m. and as you can see, we have all the trucks lined up. Normally we have about 60 something trucks. Today we have 46 trucks lined up and awaiting asphalt. We've started the operation, So by 6:30, the first truck should be loaded and out of there. The drivers, the government workers, the contractors, and general people of Grenada are very happy with getting their roads repaired, at least temporarily, because many potholes are being repaired. The truckers and the contractors who put down the asphalt, they are able to get the asphalt very early, and by 1 o'clock, they are out of there. Rayneau continues to improve the lives of people of the Caribbean and provide a service that they never had. First truck is loaded at 6:38 and leaving the plant.
They have been defiant in every sense of the word. They ignore every instruction, everything that we have done so far. And the bottom line is that sometimes we might be accused of being a little bit slow to act. But when our communities are under attack, and I see that personally, I see that as an attack on our community.
Okay, it's total defiance. They went ahead, installed the plant. The authority has in its possession the application that they made. No EIA was even submitted to the authority.
And folks, we want to welcome you back to this week's edition of the Bubb Report. Now, for the next segment of our program, we are happy to be joined by the Chief Executive Officer of the Rayneau Group of Companies. And just to give context, the clips that we played in the lead up to this segment were of work that is currently happening at the Rayneau site. The second part of that clip was part of an interview done on GBN's Beyond the Headline before the Rayneau Group of Companies was then granted permission by the Planning and Development Authority to continue their work there up in Woodford. Now, the Rayneau Construction and Industrial Equipment Limited acquired and now owns approximately 300 acres of the Woodford estate in the parish of St. John in Grenada. The company initiated development of sections of that property to establish a rock quarry, a concrete plant, asphalt plant, and jetty in the adjoining Halifax Bay area. Site preparation and construction activities began as early as June 2024, prior to securing the necessary planning and development approvals. However, in December of 2025, the Planning and Development Authority, which initially expressed frustration with Rayneau's cooperation around work at the site, issued final approvals for Rayneau to continue its work on the site, reneging on its previous work stop order. That's a work stop order that was issued by the Planning and Development Authority. Now, in the Government Gazette publication of December 2025, Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell, who is responsible for the Planning and Development Authority, approved the General Development Order giving permission to the company to construct not only the plant, but a jetty in the adjoining, I said Halifax Bay, but it's Woodford Bay, as well as the asphalt plant in Woodford. Now, published on December 24, 2025 Government Gazette, the General Development Order, as I said, was approved by the Prime Minister, subsequent to approval by Marlon Joseph, the Executive Secretary of the PDA, and Alan Gilbert, the Chief Executive Officer of the PDA. However, on the other hand, residents of the area expressed growing concerns about the ongoing industrial development in that area. A press release issued by the community in February of 2025 stated, quote, the wave of industrial activity has included deforestation and land clearing, heavy machinery, leading to increased traffic and increased dust and noise pollution. And this is also from the press release, quote, not only has the construction process already raised health risks in the community and compromised farmers' access to their lands due to the recent collapse of the feeder road, the residents have significant concerns about the long-term effects of having an industrial plant in their backyards. Now, in the interest of balance, we here on the Bubb Report made the point that we would also want to have representatives of the company to appear on the Bubb Report. As many of you know, we have covered this story extensively, fielding interviews with members of the community. We have not been successful in having anyone from the Planning and Development Authority after attempting to speak with them on several occasions. And the irony here is not lost on me, that while the PDA, they've been giving us a runaround. One has to get permission. There is always something about scheduling. But Mr. Rayneau, the CEO of the Rayneau Group of Companies, is joining us today so that we can ascertain his side of the story. And so, Mr. Rayneau, we want to welcome you, sir, to this week's edition of the Bubb Report. I know you're a very busy man, so I want to thank you for taking the time to speak with us.
Good morning. I like your attire, though.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. That's excellent. Indeed. So, Mr. Rayneau, you know, Grenadians know you, I suppose, in the context of infrastructural work. And I also did my homework because I'm a person that like doing homework and I like being prepared anytime I conduct interviews. And I did see that you had a podcast with a St. Lucian podcaster, an interviewer. I believe it was on DBS television that I saw it. But for Grenadians who don't know what makes you tick, I don't think the interviewer asked you that. So before we get into the weeds of it, for Grenadians who may not know you, what makes you tick, and what really got you into the business of construction work, infrastructural development, and things like that?
Right, but first of all, I must thank people like yourself, Ms. Kalis Jafaria, and the various people who have done a fantastic job marketing and advertising me throughout Grenada and the world.
Well, I don't think that's our job of marketing you, but okay.
I mean, maybe that's not your job because I'm not paying you for it.
No, of course not.
But I must say that it has turned out excellent for me. So I moved into Grenada, and I moved in very quietly and got all that attention from the Grenadians, the reporters, and the various people. And I must use this opportunity to thank them for what they have done. What makes me tick was the question that you ask.
Yes, sir.
And basically, this is a bad habit. So, you know, like people drink and they leave work on an afternoon and go to the bar and drink. People just like to relax. I like to work. So I started off very, very young working because I didn't have a choice. I didn't come from one of those families who made it available where you could live a life that you wanted. And only what really happened after that was because I continued working, I developed a bad habit and I could not leave that bad habit. So at 32, I retired. I could have retired at 32, And then I started back again. And then at 40, I decided, you know what, maybe I should just leave this work and start enjoying life. But then I realized I could not enjoy anything else but work. And, you know, whenever I see opportunity, I jump on the opportunity and just take advantage of it, whatever opportunities exist. I'm in the region, so I'm from St. Lucia. I moved into Dominica, I moved into Antigua, I moved into Guyana, I moved into the other islands, St. Vincent. But one of the things is, the reason I see opportunity in our region is because people of our region are very laid back. And, you know, they spend a lot of time complaining and looking for excuses, while there are so many opportunities available right in front of them. And I just look at those opportunities and take advantage of it. And this is what really drives me. So you'll see me down in the trenches like any laborer will be, even at my stage, at my age. I will be down in the trenches. I use shovel still, and I use the pen as well. So this is just who I am, and this is how I am. I'm a happy man just working.
So in the context of Grenada, sir, and again, I think it's important to set up context, because context matters for me. And I suspect for Callistra as well. We are both, incidentally, Callistra trained me as well when I was a young reporter. So perhaps it was interesting that you drew that comparison there with myself and Callistra. But we knew you in Grenada in the context of that major project, road infrastructure project in Molineux. And I believe that's where you started in the context of Grenada. We know that Molineux project, it has completed, or perhaps it's coming to the end. And now we have you in the context of doing additional infrastructure work in Grenada around asphalt. And we heard that there will be a sort of a jetty going up in St. John's as well. So let us talk about perhaps the rationale behind, I suppose, continuing to do the work that you're continuing to do. Let's talk about the demand of work that exists in Grenada that has caused you to expand in the range of work that you're currently doing.
All right, so let's start off. Yes, I came into Grenada. I bidded on the Molineux job. I was awarded the job. I started it. What causes my expansion? What causes my expansion is the need. When there's a need, I see it and I go for it. So we started off and we realized that getting concrete in Grenada was not as easy as we thought it would have been. So we brought in a concrete plant and we brought in concrete trucks, we brought in concrete pump, right? Not that concrete is not available, but it's not available when you want it. So sometimes we have to work 3 days a week. We have to schedule to get concrete. You know, in developing, doing a project, this costs a lot and you cannot be as efficient as you want to be. That is how I got into concrete. When we got into the end of the project, where we were supposed to have gotten asphalt, just a little bit of asphalt to regulate the road to prevent the dust, it was almost impossible to get asphalt from the supplier.
And when you say the road, you're talking about the Molineux road now?
Molineux
Yes,
Molineux
okay.
road,
Yes,
right?
please.
So it was almost impossible to get it. It was always a story and always a story. And then I just decided, you see this thing? I will just bring in my asphalt plant. So I asked for permission because there was a problem to bring in the asphalt plant, and I got permission to bring in a mobile asphalt plant that I had moved from St. Lucia to Dominica, and then I set up another plant in Dominica, and I moved that mobile one into Grenada. And this is how I came in to do asphalt. It was not because it was available and I did not choose to take it. It was not available at the time. So I moved into asphalt. Let me not just stray away from your questions, but I want to draw a little scenario. So there's a company called Calco who entered Grenada as well. Calco has been given a contract to do a road. I do not know where that road is, but they came to us for asphalt. And we did not hesitate to give them asphalt. And it is only after providing asphalt for a little while to them, I asked the question, why is it that you chose to come to us when there was another supplier that we're using? And the answer was the same, because they cannot get it when they want, and they almost have to beg for the service. I learned after that my price was significantly less than the other asphalt supplier. So in this case, I managed to get copies of invoices to only realize that asphalt sold to them was $994.75 per ton. And I'm selling asphalt at $776.25 per ton, which makes it $218.50 per ton less. So while I was giving a better product, a service beyond expectation, my price was $218.50 less per ton. I supplied asphalt to them from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. in the nighttime, without hesitation, without a problem. They will tell you that because of me, their project was able to happen. So, I mean, I think we passed it all because we were supposed to have started from why I put up the asphalt and so on. But those are the benefits of me setting up the plant. And the reason why I set it up is because it was not available. Now, I can supply as many people as they want with asphalt without a problem, because we have been doing it. Government continues to get asphalt, and government now, we started off giving them the asphalt at 9 a.m. and we moved to give it to them at 8 a.m. We are now giving to them at 7 a.m. So trucks line up, get into my plant 6:30, and by 6:35, 6:40, we are loading trucks and they're out. Most times, with loading all of the trucks, by 9:30, everybody is gone. We have scenarios where the first truck or the first few trucks who left the plant are back at my plant, parked on the road, already waiting for the next day because they are done. So before 9:30, we have trucks coming back and parked on the road, waiting for the next day to move. So this is the reason why I moved into the asphalt.
Yeah. So let us talk specifically about the Woodford site, because the Woodford site really has been the bone of contention for the residents in the area, and some have framed it in other ways as well. But let us talk about the rationale for identifying the Woodford site as the place for setting up that asphalt plant. And part of that also has to do with, again, the commentary here that we heard from the Planning and Development Authority, that you went ahead to do work there without initially getting their permission. Belatedly, you did get permission. But let us talk first and foremost about that particular site, as well as the rationale for starting work there without getting requisite approval from the Planning and Development Authority. And what they indicated was that there was a need for you to submit, I believe, the EIA.
All right. So let's correct.
Maybe that's somebody calling for asphalt there.
No. Let's correct the first part of this, right? You said that the Woodford side was the bone of contention. I don't
Correct.
think
according to the residents.
No, I think it is speculation, but not contention. I don't think there's a contention here. There's speculation because people do not know. Right? I don't think there's a contention. The words need to be used carefully.
No, well, of course, language matters, sir. And the contention is contained in the EIA, written by the GECO consultant.
I think you see it as a contention.
Well, no, I don't see it as a contention.
Speculation and misunderstanding.
And it might be a case of semantics, and we can agree to disagree with that.
Right.
But let us go on to how you see it. Yes.
Okay, so that site I chose in Woodford, you know, and all Grenadians know, it's far from basic where all the activity is. So all the activity is in the capital city. And while we were there, I asked, let's get a property and see where we could buy first to put something up. And this property came up. Actually, 3 different real estate agents tried to sell that to us over a 2-year period. And everybody that I spoke to said to me, no, don't buy it. There's nothing to do with that land because of the garbage dump there. It's been there for 20 years. They have created...
That's the Perseverance area, yes.
Yes, with the Perseverance area. Because I don't know if you're aware, but my boundary is right on the landfill boundary as well. I even understand they took part of this land, the Woodford land, to as part of the landfill. So we are bounded together. And I was actually swayed from purchasing that property by a number of people that I asked. The distance, its location, because of the landfill, what I can do with it, what will I do with it? There's nothing that I can do with that property there now. And, you know, I walked the land and I saw opportunity in the property. What opportunity did I see? One, it was right next to a landfill, which means environmentally, because it's in the same valley of the landfill, it would have shared the same environmental impacts as the landfill. This is a landfill that has been burning for years, right? You know, always a fire, always burning, you always have the same environmental impacts. We have come in and there's an asphalt plant right next door to the landfill as well. And that asphalt plant is not as environmentally friendly as the one that I brought in. So really and truly speaking, because we are in a location of a landfill that is always on fire, the environmental impacts are the same or worse. I saw it fitting in that area for me to put in the asphalt plant. Notwithstanding, what was interesting about the property was its location next to the landfill was a very good point. Secondly, on walking on the property, I realized that the property is a massive quarry. So there are a lot of stone on the property, and one of my operators told me that when they were building the port in the city, that most of the boulders came from that location. One other thing was the Halifax harbor that you put on there. I was told that what's his name, Mr. George Klein, who owned the property, used that location for shipping out plenty goods out of that location to the other Caribbean islands. So this was a hub for ships to come in and get agricultural products out of that area. And when I found out later, it was not very long ago, some 40 years ago, which is not long ago, is when that was being used. I went further and I Googled, only to find out that it says Halifax Harbor, historically known as Petit Havre on the west coast of Grenada, has been used as a harbor for centuries. So this is nothing new that we're doing. All we're going to be doing is reinstating a location where the ships came in for me to bring in barges. Why barges? We have the opportunity for us to do a lot of export of boulders, aggregates out of the Woodford area for export, which is going to be bringing in foreign exchange into Grenada. And we also have the opportunity whatever we need to bring in by barge, we could also bring it in there. The Grenada port has been very difficult to schedule barges coming in because of the much activity taking place on the port. Me setting up a port down in Halifax Harbour will lend itself to many other people having the opportunity to use that port, remove all of those barges coming into the main port and being used on the Halifax Harbour Port, which is going to ease up the congestion in the town itself. So there are benefits, and we're not doing anything different from what it used to be. It is just going to be reintroduced and maybe at a little bigger scale than it was been happening.
But Mr. Rayneau, let us talk about, especially in the context of, and again, yes, and some may say, and you probably would have a disagreement with my use of the terminology contention, but let us talk about following due process for, and we must first and foremost make the point, and I always say this, we have said this on the Bubb Report ad nauseum, that in the absence of a proper land use policy in any territory, these conflicts are bound to arise whenever private people engage in private sale of lands, right? Because again, the reality is a private person cannot tell another private person that they can't sell their land, right? I think we have to establish that. But let us talk about what the Planning and Development Authority initially expressed frustration with. And that was the fact that you went ahead and you did not submit the environmental impact assessment study as was required. And there was a point when they gave you a stop order on the property there. But you still went ahead to do work. Of course, you heard what Ms. Janice of the Planning and Development Authority said here. So let us talk about why you actually proceeded with work there without first submitting the EIA, and secondly, really adhering to what was the request or should have been the order of the Planning and Development Authority. Or is there something perhaps that we missed on the public end that perhaps you were communicating with Planning and Development Authority that the public is not aware of?
Yes, we were communicating with them, and initially the plant was not supposed to have been a plant to have stayed there. It was supposed to have been put there just to complete the Molyneux job. Originally, that was the plan, right? So it was supposed to have been a temporary structure and removed after we had finished the Molyneux. However, you will realize, and you will also know, that that location does not lend itself properly to a concrete plant being in operation, because there's not much activity in that general area for you to be able to use a concrete plant. So that concrete plant will only be generally used for myself. I can't remember too many people requesting concrete from us in that area, but I don't see it's going to be any big use of the plant for the concrete, because there's not much activity or construction activity in that general area. Later on, the asphalt plant, we did make all the requests, and we put in all the information for us to put in the asphalt plant. The asphalt plant never started before we got permission.
So, okay, so but let us, okay, so you're saying that in the context of that permission, but you eventually, the Planning and Development Authority did eventually grant permission. Let's go on from the Planning and Development Authority now to speak to some of the concerns that the residents raised. And some of those concerns are also captured in the EIA published by GECO Consultants. I believe you did hire them. I'm not too sure if they're still your EIA consultant or whether or not the EIA was published. But we are now in the, I believe, in phase 2. Would you say that you're in phase 2, sir, of the quarry development, or is it done? Or that, because it's a lot of acres, 300 acres.
No, it's not done. It hasn't even started. The property is 330 acres. It actually comprises the Woodford estate,
Yes.
Mondo, and another estate. It's 3 estates together, right? Which makes up this property. So there's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of opportunity there, and it's going to happen in time.
In time, okay.
In terms of what was the question you asked me that I'm supposed
yes,
to
the question the question that the residents articulated here, the concerns of the residents, some of who live there. There are people who live there. They've raised concerns about the noise. They've raised concerns about the dust. But they are not the only ones raising this. So while some are saying that, some have argued that this is political, the consultant that you hired, sir, also raised those concerns. So let us look at some of the summary of critical issues that GECO points out. And here I'm speaking now to the quarry. On the creation of areas for stone crushing equipment, storage of stockpiles, ponds for management of wastewater, blasting, etc., etc. She goes on to say this: 1, loss of vegetation and wildlife habitat. Now, I would say this, that wildlife habitat has already been lost there because of perseverance. There's been years of research on that. So, generation of large volumes of dust from earth movement and stone crushing. Potential impact on structural integrity of houses on the mountain range. Increased stormwater runoff to the Duce River. Siltation of waterway, impact on wetland and marine ecosystem. I suspect she's referring to what's happening there at Halifax Bay, perhaps. Wastewater management, breeding ground for vectors such as mosquitoes. And these are a summary of those critical...
Listen
yes,
to this, right?
Yes, sir.
If you look at any EIA that is written, this is normal jargon that's used in an EIA. This is not isolated to just this area. So if you look at any EIA, if you Google anything, that information will come up on every EIA, because that is what they go to school for. That's what they tell them, and that's why this is not isolated to this area alone, right? So yes, if you look at it in detail, there is going to be some level of impact on every item that you read out here. The question is, how do we minimize it?
Yeah, in terms of the mitigation, yes. So
that's what it is. How do you minimize it? And we are doing everything that we can do to minimize it. So let's go back to the location. That location in the valley before the other mountain where the houses are. If you look at the Perseverance landfill, everything, the smoke, everything goes straight over into the hill. Where we are located is in a valley compared to where the residents are. But I want to say something. You said that many residents have complained or have aired. Would you believe that I have publicly gave my phone number? I think that's where you found my phone number too, right?
Well, no, I actually found your phone number from a journalist, not you, not the resident.
For people to contact me, right, directly. Nobody has contacted me, not even the residents right along the road. I walked past there. I went there. I spoke to the people. The people that are making noises are not people from the area, right? And the people from the area, directly from the area, speak to me. We have a very good relationship, and I don't have a problem. So, we make it look like it's somebody else saying it. But the people that are really making those allegations are not people from the area. If they were people from the area, they would have known that the landfill was there for more than 20 years. The landfill created all those environmental impacts that they refer to for the last 20 years. And what we have done there with a small land clearing, the only impact that we would have made, yes, is some dust, especially during the dry season. We use water trucks. However, you can never keep the place over wet. Over the last week, it's been raining in Grenada, and everyone can see a major difference in the dust that is being raised. So I know we're going to be casting the place We're going to clean it up, and we're going to make sure that we reduce any possible impact.
You, Mr. Rayneau, I just have to follow up there, because you said that people in the area did not speak to you. Have you heard of a gentleman by the name of Mr. Hector? He lives in the area. Did you attempt to reach out to Mr. Hector?
No, because I am here. Mr. Hector knows where my location is. I don't think he has reached out to any of my people, my truckers, my workers, my manager, my supervisors. Everybody is there. There's nobody hiding away. My phone number, I have put it out publicly. I would like to add it here again, 1758-712-4600. Anyone can contact me directly. I will make myself available to have a discussion, a talk to anyone who has a concern. You would have seen also that people posting things on Facebook looking for the attention. I have also invited those people, every one of them, to come to the site. The only person who have chosen to take on my request to come to my site was Miss Callistra. She came to my site, not last week Sunday, the Sunday before. She came to my site about 11:30. She spent about 2 hours on the site. And even while we had trucks driving there, I said to her, here's a great opportunity. Take a video of the dust. So she may put out that video sometime. Something that I told her, because it was very dry. While the truck was climbing the hill, it was dusty. But since then, we have already cast the road. So there's no more dust anymore, because where she took that video, the whole road has been cast already. She's the only one who has taken it on and chose to come. And she did come in on a Sunday. So
on a Sunday, okay.
Nobody else has come.
Yeah. Very well. Now let us talk about residents. And again, residents also, again, those who we interviewed, they also articulated that there could have been another area adjacent to where the current quarry is constructed that might have been better for the plant. Is that a recommendation you heard from anyone?
At the end of the day, right?
Yes, sir.
Anywhere that I have put the plant will serve the purpose for one person and make another person unhappy. So no matter what you do, how you do, somebody is going to complain. Now, while they may say there's another location, did they indicate to you what that location was?
Yes,
Or
they did.
Did you ask?
In fact, well, no, I did. And I'm actually going to share the link with that interview. I believe it's a couple yards away from where the current location is. Again, I have not come to the site, but I promise I will, like Callistra, come there, not
You
for
should.
a marketing exercise, for a fact-finding mission, okay? I'm not into the business of marketing anybody, okay?
Right?
Okay.
Okay, how much difference will a few yards make?
Well, you are the expert here. That's why we are pressing you with those questions.
No, I'm not an expert. I'm only asking
you are.
all of them, how much difference will a few yards make? Right? Perseverance is right there. The other asphalt plant is right there. It's a few yards away. What difference does the few yards make? Is it just a personal preference? Or is it something bigger that I'm not seeing? Besides, for you to be able to utilize the location, you must get a location that has a relatively small flat area. This is all hilly area. We have had a lot of excavation work to do to create the flat areas. And that's what we've done. I don't, if you know the area, if you look at the topography of the area, this area once apparently was used as a quarry a long time ago. So when I went up there, I saw the location. They created that flat area there. There was fuel tanks on the site. There were concrete structures on the site where they used as a garage. And, I just saw it. I saw the potential to do something with it, and I took it on.
Let us go on to talk about again, and I would quickly go back to the EIA. So, did you submit an EIA to PDA before the PDA approved?
We submitted everything that was what was requested of us.
Was it the GECO PDA that you submitted?
EIA, I think a number of other documents were requested as well. I cannot list it out to you now, but whatever was requested, we ensured that we submitted.
But the question is, why did you start work before EIA did not grant you blanket approval to start?
Because, generally the reality is, if you have to wait for anything for somebody else to get you going, you never move, brother.
Well, so I understand that, but there's still laws. I mean, there's still laws, Mr. Rayneau,
but do you know there's also a law that says when you submit a plan, there's a time limit for you to get a response?
And are you suggesting that you did not get a time limit?
And when
you
did
not get a response from PDA?
No, we're going to the other part. When that time limit is suspended, what is the consequence? Have you ever heard of a consequence of that from any government institution? Besides, the PDA staff have been excellent with me. I think I was the one who delayed a little bit in submitting the information they requested, but at no point in time did they ever give me any negative for my submission. I think what happened was when they requested something, the consultants that I employed promised to give it in a specific time and took 4 times the amount of time to give it, even after I paid upfront. So
are you referencing the environmental consultant here?
I'm referencing to everybody that I have used. I have paid in advance. So whoever was recommended, the professionals, I paid in advance. I do not say do it and then I'll pay you. I pay in advance. They promise that they're going to give it to you in a space of time, and it's a story and a story and a story after. Emails and emails and emails and phone calls that never get returned answered. This is the story. And the PDA got frustrated with me at one time. And I suspect that is why they sent the stop notice, because I kept promising delivery and it was not delivered. But I am not the one doing it. I'm paying so-called professionals to do it. And they have given a time limit in which to deliver, and it's not delivered. I feel for the PDA. They tried very hard with me. They worked very well with me. They guided all along the way. I was the one, and my people were the ones who did not deliver on time. At the end of the day, we delivered, but not in the time that they expected.
Now, and you're praising the PDA in Grenada, but there was a case brought against you in the context of the Planning and Development Control Authority in St. Lucia. Now, that was back in 2010. Sort of a similar issue there, where there was an injunction sought and secured against you to halt what was then called the unauthorized operation of an industrial cement plant in Corinth, where, again, similar pattern, residents, they complained, and perhaps you may say those are not residents, about the ongoing noise and dust in that area. So let's talk about that 2010 case.
Let me tell you how this thing goes, right?
Yes.
In Corinth, again, at the time I moved in there, was 1992. The area was undeveloped, and I started a concrete plant. Nobody had a problem with it because it's all developed at the time. You know, there are some things that you cannot say. You leave it alone and you move on. But I'm a leader. I start things. I make areas grow. So the Corinth area, I started it back in 1992. And Corinth today is a commercial industrial area now, started by me. I have 4 buildings in the Corinth area, with none of them having planning approval. Why? because every plan that was approved, that was sent, even the planning officers themselves at the time said to me, Rayneau, I do not know why they don't approve. There's no problem. But this is what happens. If we are to move, sometimes we need to take the risk and make it happen. So if you want to go back and get a little history about that concrete plant in Corinth, let me give it to you now. So while that concrete plant was shut down, it was shut down for a specific reason by a specific person to benefit themselves. I understand that. However, do you also know that I got approval to replace the concrete plant 150 meters away from where it was? 150 meters. So I got approval to place that concrete plant 150 meters from where it was. I never brought the concrete plant back. I turned that location into a distribution center for building materials, sandstone, and everything else. But I did not get approval for what it is. I got approval for a concrete plant. We moved on. You need to move on. And I put that plant down in cul-de-sac. Ever since, it has been there. And I later put one up further up north, which worked out better for me at this time. So, you know I have to take a little licks for some things that I do, but I'm a mover. I make things happen, right? Sometimes you can't go with the flow. If you go with the flow, it takes you all the way to the sea, right? I want to be on land, so I swim across. And this is the risk that I take. And I agree. There's sometimes it will not work out, and there's sometimes it'll work out. In this case of me being at Woodford, I can assure you that within the next 2 years, 3 years, people will love Rayneau again, a lot more than they do. Grenadians love Rayneau, Some people just do not agree with what I did, but they love me. I have had a great time in Grenada. Everybody loves me. Look, I don't even cook when I come to Grenada. People offer me breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I'm a happy man in Grenada, so I love it there. But I am going to develop, I'm going to help develop Grenada, push Grenada forward to somewhere where Grenadians never saw the opportunities to do it. And even they saw the opportunities, they chose not to do it. Right now, I have a few young people working with me who have done excellent. I have one young guy who's 21, been working there for 2.5, 3 years, just left school. Even before he left school, he came. And this guy has done very well. He operates, he drives. Right now, he runs the concrete plant, and we're now teaching him to run the asphalt plant. This is a Grenadian, a long Grenadian, and we have many others. And, I'm here to make it better. Yes, I'm a businessman, but I will deliver, I will give back for what I'm asking to be rewarded for.
And you mentioned swimming and ocean, and that will be, we have 3 more issues, so I promise I will let you go have your lunch. I don't know what's on your menu today, sir. But let us talk about what will be happening down there at the jetty that you will be constructing. Of course, folks also raise concerns, environmental concerns there as well. But in the context of that jetty, and you mentioned Port Authority indicated that they have frustrations. Is this going to be a deep water setup? What will that look like?
No, it not will be. Remember, the area itself is a deep water setup. So it's not to say it's going to be different.
So you're not going to be doing any additional dredging, is what I hear you saying.
You will not need to do dredging because the area there is a harbor. It lends itself to what we're going to use it for. The only thing that we are going to be doing is what we did in St. Vincent. We are going to be putting out some rocks out from the shoreline and create a little platform that the barges can just come against. That's it. And it's all going to be to one side of the beach.
One side of the beach. And I'm looking at the map here. So we have the Halifax Harbor here.
So it will be on the north side.
It will be okay. So I'm just going to share the screen for the benefit of our viewers and listeners, because again, part of what we do here is also public education. We think it's important. So we're looking at the map here. Let me, if I can make the screen a bit bigger. And if you direct me with the mouse, I can, exactly where we working with here. The area that's labeled as the cove.
I think the area that no, it's further in. So it's next to the cove.
So it's next to the cove.
Conservation area?
Right.
Exactly where your mouse is there.
Okay, right. So this is where it's going to be.
Yeah, go a little higher up.
Okay, a little higher here.
Right there. No, come down because you're in the land now. Right there. Exactly
right there. I see. Yes. Okay.
Exactly that area.
Yeah. Let us talk about how large this facility is going to be there.
This is going to be 10 meters wide maximum, which is 30 feet. All it is just for the truck to be able to go on and come off the barge. Mm-hmm. And then it's going to be about 50 meters into the water.
Yeah. Okay, very well. So 50 meters into the water there.
This is exactly what I did in St. Vincent. And we have all big barges going there as well.
With respect, that St. Vincent project also came in for critique as well. How did you treat with those concerns that the folks in St. Vincent raised?
If you look at it right now, the same folks who raised all the critiques, right now, those things are generally political. So now that the political party have changed in St. Vincent, they are now doing a quarry facility right next to mine. So all of a sudden, what was a problem is not a problem again because it's another administration doing it. So if you look at St. Vincent, you'll realize some people are just talking about it, but the people who had an issue with me doing it under the last administration, all of a sudden do not have a problem with a new quarry being done right next to me right now.
I did see that in the news, but since you brought up politics, sir, because as I said, I did my homework. I like doing homework, for guests, because I do not want to be accused of ambushing folks. I don't believe in ambush journalism.
It's okay, sir. You can ambush me. Right? Let me see how I deal with it.
But hopefully, I trust that I've been firm and fair in this engagement with you. But in the podcast that you did in St. Lucia, very well done podcast. I really enjoyed parts of that conversation that you had and the way that the host handled it. One of the things that you said was that you brought up the idea that the Caribbean functions on election cycles.
Yes.
And governments, in 3 years, they don't do much, but 2 years before an election, they start doing a lot of work. What did you mean by that? Is your business model premise on the idea that you will be doing work in islands based on election cycles? What was that about, sir?
Well, it is a reality. So what I did was I've set up in Montserrat, Antigua, Dominica, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, Grenada, Guyana, right? That's this region. I'm set up in China and I'm set up in India as well, but that operates totally differently. But in our region, this is how it works. So the reality is, once the elections have passed, very little happens for the next 2 years. And all you hear is we are planning, and you see a rollout in the third year, 3.5 years. And if for any reason they decide that they're going to call elections earlier than the 5-year cycle, then the work starts a little earlier. I'm a businessman. All I do is set myself up and be ready for whenever it comes.
Would you say that is what is happening in Grenada? Because certainly there has been an increase in work in Grenada.
Listen to this. This happens in every one of the islands. And if you look back at history, Grenada did it the same way under every administration. This is what happens. This is politics. Let's be real. This is what we need to do. People forget very easily. If they do anything in the first 2 years, even the first 3 years, people forget it and take it for granted. right? Every election cycle and every administration always have to give more. And you know what we are doing politically to the Caribbean is not good. The giving and giving and giving is not good. We are creating monsters for ourselves. You know, in the next few generations, people will just decide, I was just born, and because I was born, you have to feed me and clothe me and give me everything, because nobody wants to work anymore.
That
Everybody
sense of
wants a handout.
entitlement. There is a sense of entitlement. I would agree with you there, which brings us to two final points, because I do want to stick to what we agreed to. That has to do with labor shortage, and that is an issue you raised in that previous podcast in our homework we did with on preparing for the program today. Labor shortage concerns in the Caribbean, and how you're dealing with it, because in the context of Grenada right now, we hear a lot about the labor shortages in the construction sector. I have an anecdote of a family friend who I know very well. He does a lot of yacht maintenance work, and he was telling me that he was struggling to get 2 Grenadian young men to come work with him. That's a very niche and unique area that a lot of Caribbean people don't get involved in. And I thought, I was so impressed with the fact that, you know, he decided to get involved in that niche area of yacht maintenance, but he was saying that he couldn't find workers. Let us talk about that current challenge that exists in the Caribbean and how we can treat with it.
All right, this is interesting because your program before mine spoke about reparations and slavery and that type of thing, right?
Yes.
You know, we need to be real about it. You know, 500 years ago, 200 years ago. So let's not even go 500. Let's go 200 years ago. Are we saying that the people of the time were smarter than us, although we're supposed to be more educated than them, to know that if you are to develop the country, develop industry, and make things better for the islands at the time, the only way that you do it is to bring foreigners in to make it happen. That is why the Africans came to our region, and that is why the Indians came to our region. It is because the natives at that time still did not want to work and produce. So they had to bring people in to do it. You know, everybody from our region continues to run away to the United States or go to England. Right now, you hear people in Australia, Switzerland, all over the place. But traditionally, it was going to London, going to New York, right? What did they go to do there? They went to work. America and England welcomed them. They became the workers. They never saw themselves as slaves. But the reality is they went to work and they did all the jobs that they would not do in the Caribbean. Even they were educated, had all the certification. They went and did babysitting and the most menial jobs in the US and London, right? They do not want to do the jobs that are available in our region, but will go out there. However, you would also realize that when I bring Indians and I bring Colombians and I bring people from Peru and El Salvador, those people are willing to do all the jobs that our Caribbean people are not willing to do. And they are also willing to put in a lot more, learn, and be better, because all they come to do is make money and send back home. You know, one of the things, if the Caribbean is supposed to grow, we need to stop politicizing the importation of workers. We need to stop that. However, one bit of advice I would give is every Grenadian, St. Lucian, or Antiguan that leaves the island to go to the US or anywhere else, government should allow 2 foreigners to come in to take their place. Because you're leaving and going back. And you'd also realize that the people that are not in the islands are the ones who have the most time to complain about everything else that they do not know. I see Dominica under pressure, and they are under pressure from social media, not from people from Dominica, but from people who have left Dominica. It happens in St. Vincent, it happens in St. Lucia, and they have no idea how good it is in our islands. then you'd ask me, why haven't I left? Because the Caribbean islands are the best place to be. We are the most laid back. We are the happiest. We work if we want. We work if we don't want. I go to Grenada, and like I said, I don't cook. Everybody offers me food. I'm the happiest man. I get breakfast at 4 or 5 different places. People bring lunch for me. Wherever I am, I get lunch delivered to me. So, but not, that being said, doesn't mean that I have to become laid back and not care. I think we need to have a different mindset. How to develop ourselves? How do we make ourselves better and not be laid back and expect governments to continue giving and giving and giving? This has not done well for us over the years. You know, we look at tourism, and everybody moved out of agriculture and moved into tourism, moved into driving taxis and so on.
A lot of the service-oriented industry
move from one type of colonialism to another type. So what have we created? I'm not saying that tourism is not good. I'm just saying that the amount of emphasis being put on tourism is not going to do well for us in the longer term. It did its time. We need to look at other ways of developing our countries instead of making all our people become servants of tourism. So once we were agriculturists, and you know, even under agriculture, I think we were better off. Under agriculture, when you had a farm, you had an accountant, you had the actual farmers, you had people learning every part of the works, because as part of the family, somebody had to count it, somebody had to plant it, somebody had to reap it, somebody had to do the accounts to find out how much you owe, somebody had to sell it. We created a number of different people within the agricultural industry. In the tourism industry, the only thing we created is servants. How does that make it better for us? Where is the future for our people? How many people working in tourism industry have the opportunity to do anything else but continue being a servant? And I think our governments of the region needs to look at this more closely and focus our people on other more beneficial things for the long term.
Two final questions, sir. And one of the issues that has been raised in some quarters in Grenada has to do, and that was raised by, I suppose, a rival businessman, I believe Mr. Louison, on other news reports in Grenada. And that has to do with asphalt quality. That they attempted to do a side-by-side comparison of your asphalt versus what they produce. Now, let us talk about asphalt quality and what goes into the quality control. So it's not just you saying that, okay, well, we have asphalt, or Mr. Louison saying they have asphalt. But what is the methodology that goes into determining whether or not the asphalt that you are going to be laying, or the contractors are going to be laying, meets a particular quality control standard? Is the Ministry of Works in Grenada, or infrastructure, what they call it now, responsible for doing that quality control? How does that work?
All right, so let me tell you, asphalt, like concrete, you could get different grades, different mix designs. So if you're doing an airport, your mix design is much different from if you're doing a road. Really and truly speaking, the asphalt mix design that you're going to be using around the corner supposed to be different from the asphalt used on a stretch. And the asphalt in the last 50 meters to where you're going to get a stop sign supposed to be different. The reason for that is because of the load. It's not supposed to move. So there are many variables in asphalt production. However, we give to the ministry and we give to the clients whatever mix design they request from us. What happens is they give us a mix design. We produce the mix design. To verify it, it's taken to the Bureau standards. The Bureau standards test it and say to you, yes, this is good. No, this is not good. We have not had any instance where anybody that we supplied asphalt in Grenada complained about the quality that they received. So Who have we supplied? We supplied Calco and we supplied the government of Grenada. The government of Grenada to date has taken from us 4,662 tons of asphalt from us. So between the 29th of May and today, which is basically 1 month, the government has taken 4,662 tons of asphalt. By buying from us, I sent out somebody to do a little video to get a result of what people had to say. And I'm sure you would have gotten a copy of it, where the drivers, the workers on the site, and everybody concerned in doing the asphalt for government gave a good review and were happy with the asphalt, the timing, and so on. Notwithstanding, government to date in the 1 month has taken 4,662 tons of asphalt from us. Because of the price that we sold to government, they would have saved $972,716 based on the information I have on the price that I sell and the price that the other supplier sells. So obviously, if government is saving $972,000, almost $1 million on purchase of asphalt only in 1 month, the quality has been good. The people receiving the product have said it is good, and the materials lab, which is the Bureau standards in Grenada, have said it is good. All I can report to you is I have not had any issue or complaints from the people that we supply the asphalt to.
Which is primarily the government of Grenada?
Well, primarily the government of Grenada, but Calco took quite a bit as well, because Calco took almost 2,000 tons as well.
Finally, Mr. Rayneau here, and that has to do with the folks there in Woodford. We received a letter confirming that they have instituted legal proceedings against you over what's happening up there in Woodford, over your project, really. And it says, and this is from the press release we received, it says, the Woodford Environmental Alliance for Community Transformation confirms that a formal legal process has begun in relation to planning and environmental concerns surrounding industrial development activities in Woodford, St. John. On the 20th of May 26, we initiated the process of serving a letter before action on the PDA, Rayneau Construction, and Industrial Development Products Limited, and any other relevant parties. Can you confirm that you received that pre-action protocol letter?
Right. So if you go back to what you read, it says we have acted and initiated a process. That's what it says, right?
Correct.
Right. Well, I think that process is initiated but not completed, because to date I've heard nothing and I've seen nothing. So it's in process, I guess.
Okay, very well. Well, that is a story we'll be following up, sir. Well, Mr. Rayneau, we have certainly exhausted the time. I'm not too sure what you heard of the Bubb Report or me before coming onto the program, but I trust that, again, you found your treatment here firm but fair and balanced. People accuse me of all different things, but again, what we try to do here is to be able to ventilate all sides. And it was important for us on the Bubb Report to also hear from you as well. So thank you for agreeing to appear on the program. And I do promise that when the next time you're in Grenada, or perhaps my producer as well, we can definitely schedule a visit to the area, because I'm familiar with the area well. As a young reporter, I would go up there with the Campbells on their farms to do agricultural coverage as well. So over to you, sir, for closing comments.
Right. I'll be back on Tuesday afternoon. Okay. So from Tuesday evening, Wednesday, I'll be there. You're welcome. I would really like you to come for you to see it yourself. And,
not for the purpose of doing marketing, sir.
Well,
I'm not a marketer.
this actually works very well. It works well. And, the benefit of it is greater than the loss of it. But, I say thank you to people that do it. In terms of you, yeah, I heard I had to be careful with you. Be
Oh,
careful.
you heard that you had to be careful with me.
Yeah,
okay.
questions going to
I
ask
suppose
me.
that's a compliment. I don't know.
Yeah, you didn't ask me any tough questions. I was
you don't
actually
have any tough
expecting.
questions. Okay.
Yeah, you didn't ask me any tough questions. Maybe the next time you'd be in a better position to ask me tough questions. But
I don't know what you define as tough, but okay.
You know, something that I would be stuck with trying to answer that I could not answer.
Oh, well.
But, you know, all what you asked me was straightforward questions to the
point.
Well,
it was in the context of everything that's happening there. As I said, you know, that is an issue we've covered ad nauseum. You know, we spoke to, again, one of the residents in the area. And quite frankly, sir, you know, and this is the concern. I think that there is just that tendency to dismiss these residents' concerns. People live there, right? And so one can appreciate if you live in a place and you're seeing this building or this infrastructural development in your neighborhood, naturally you would have concerns. One viewer is saying, if you are in the position of the residents, how would you feel? You know? So I think it's important to really ventilate those issues.
What you should do is to, you know, go out and do the interviews yourself. Come to the site, go out and do the interviews yourself.
As we have been doing.
Because I think you're taking second-hand information, and that information might be coming from somebody that does not even know where Woodford is. Because, you know, I notice many people post stuff that they don't even know what they're talking about. So maybe you should come and do it firsthand and hear for yourself and see for yourself. And, you know, make... And
that is the essence of important journalism, you know, ventilating all sides and getting to the places to see for yourself and not allowing social media, the lens of social media, to determine or to cause you to arrive at a conclusion. You know,
that's right.
There are three sides to a story: your side, my side, and the truth. I think we can agree.
You need to come to see the truth yourself.
Okay, so over to you, sir. Closing comments.
I mean, you know, I've been doing quite some work, so I'll be doing the Tempe Road, the Tempe to Moncoma Road. I'm doing the St. David School. I'm doing the Rillis Road, and I'm also doing the landslide works up in Marbella. So we are going to be doing some work. We are going to be pushing the work. I think from what I have heard, many people are very happy and satisfied with the progress that we have made. There was a site visit on the St. David School. We are way ahead of schedule. Everybody is happy with it. On the Marbella project, we should have done significantly more, but we are waiting on NAWASA to remove one of the pipes in the area. We've been there waiting for quite a while. They promised that they're going to come and do it this week. If they do it this week, you're going to see major improvement works on the Marbella Road. And Willis continues to do well. And, you know, over the next couple of months, Grenadans will start to appreciate what Rayneau is bringing for them in Grenada.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rayneau, for appearing on the Bubb Report this week. And happy Indian Arrival Day, although in the interview you did say that you grew up with some Creole folks, some African folks. You see yourself as St. Lucian. Yeah.
Very well. I'm a Caribbean
man now, right. Okay, yes. Very well. Okay, thank you, Mr. Rayneau, for appearing on the Bubb Report this week.
Very well, sir.
Absolutely. Viewers and listeners, that was a very extensive conversation that we titled In the Spotlight, Rayneau Construction's Presence in Grenada. I believe we attempted to really ventilate all of the major concerns relative to the work of Mr. Rayneau's company, the Rayneau Group of Companies up there at the Woodford Estate, the Mundo, some folks call it the Mundo area in St. John, which borders the Perseverance Estate as well in Grenada. That is a story that we have been covering for many months. Since the earlier part of the year, we have been covering the story. We have ventilated concerns of the residents, and now it was important for us to also ventilate Mr. Rayneau's side of the story as well. So I do apologize, folks, that we were not able to get to all of your comments. The comments were coming in hard and fast, but I believe it was an important occasion for us to hear from Mr. Rayneau and allow him to also ventilate those issues. But one of the the conclusions that have arrived from this conversation, again, as I've said before, is that there are serious concerns of governance in our society in respect of, for example, the Planning and Development Authority, right? Allowing, things to go on and happen without, and folks, critique developers and investors and things like that. But that critique has to be reserved for our institutional organizations who are the ones responsible for enacting and enforcing best practices around policy. There's also a major issue in Grenada with respect to land use. There is not a serious land use policy. There have been several proposals for a land use policy, so that when these issues arise, such as what's happening there in Woodford, or such as what happened in Lassages, Liverpool, all of those areas, it is because there is an absence of a land use policy in place, and there is just haphazard development all over the place. And there is also a school of thought that there is also a double standard in enforcement, right? So we have concerns with people not following regulations on crown lands by way of squatting, but that concern also occurs in the context of entrepreneurs and business people who also do not follow best practices. So are we enforcing the law equally across the board? Those are some of those issues that we really have to acknowledge and really sit with in the context of our development prospects, right? Very, very important. So folks, again, on behalf of the producers of the program, I'm your humble host, Dr. Kellen Bubb. We thank you for appearing on, we thank all of you for participating in the program this week. And again, as I said, we are celebrating our sixth anniversary this week. And we want to thank our audience, thank everyone who has been with us from the start. And those of you who have joined along the way, we want to thank you as well for your continued viewership and listenership of the program. Without you, this program will not grow. Without you, this program will not be the quality that it is. So we thank all of you for your feedback, whether that feedback is negative or positive, because we take all of it in strides. So again, on behalf of my hardworking producer, we want to thank you again for all of your participation this week. We want to thank our guests for also their participation on the program this week. And we'll see you next week for yet another installment of the Bubb Report. Take care. Bye-bye. Hi, everyone. The Bubb Report is committed to being fearless, balanced, and independent, bringing you the stories that matter most without compromise. Now do us a favor. Remember to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Hit the bell so you never miss an update. You can also watch us on GBN TV every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Catch us on WPG10 television every Sunday at 8 p.m. Your support helps us to keep journalism free from bias and influence. And together, we can make sure every voice is heard and every fact is verified. Thanks for watching.
Should your loved ones pass on, they deserve to be treated with dignity. And at S.A. Johnson Funeral Home, we can provide you with that service. We can take you every step of the way during your sorrowful moments. When that need arises, call S.A. Johnson Funeral Home at 347-777-9797. That's 347-777-9797. S.A. Johnson Funeral Home is a Caribbean family-owned funeral home here in Brooklyn, providing funeral services, but in a dignified way. From cremation to burial to the repatriation of your loved ones, you don't have to go through the hassle, as we provide exceptional service that allows you to mourn and heal peacefully. For more information, visit our website, www.sajohnsonfuneral.org. Send us an email at sajfuneral@aol.com or call 347-777-9797. S.A. Johnson Funeral Home, because you deserve to be treated with dignity.